Good morning, Mayor and Council. So yesterday we went through the operating. Today we'll go through the capital projects, which will cover the current year projects, the 10-year capital plan, and we'll have a brief look at debt and reserves at the very end of the presentation. So if you turn to the capital introduction, page 465 and 466. I always like to do just a summary of the total capital projects for the year, so you can see that we've got $5.48 million worth of projects being presented. The sources of funding for this are $1.5 million for grant revenue. Mostly that consists of, we've got CCBT, don't ask me to tell you what they all stand for, the LGFF, which are two grants that we get on an ongoing basis from the provincial government, as well as we get 50% for certain projects from the county, which is $631,000. The transfers from reserves will be $3.3 million, and down below it breaks out the total projects basically by division, so administration, protective services, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, the next page lists the individual projects, and we also have project descriptions, and each director or manager will come up and basically walk you through each of the capital projects and allow for discussion and questions on each one. Is there any questions? No? Okay, with that, we will go to the next tab. And again, I'd like to bring your attention to the antique picture that I found. It was, looks like they were having their Diamond Jubilee. So Rocky was what, 50 years old in 1927, and that is our main street almost 100 years ago, which is, so if people complain about the snow removal, maybe we should. The mud removal would be a, yeah. Yeah. No, it's quite interesting to see what it used to look like. Okay, so the first one that comes up, we've got two projects in administration. Excuse me. The first one is we're looking at financial software replacement. We were very dismayed when Diamond started announcing that they are doing end of life for what we call Diamond. We use a company called Central Square. Diamond it's a Microsoft product. It runs on Great Plains, and they are basically discontinuing it. We've been on Diamond for 10 years, 11 years now, I guess. So yeah, not something anybody wants to go through. We've looked at sort of what other municipal software is out there. There's three that are kind of the contenders. We had several meetings with each one of them. There's one that we think would be best suited for the town. We are looking at that it's better to transfer sooner rather than later, just because there's going to be a lot of people switching over. And I have had the opportunity of doing probably 3 major software conversions. I did swear I would never do another one, but maybe there's one more in my future. But it's a huge task. It's extremely onerous on staff, because you basically have to take all your data, convert it, set up your tables, do your testing, load your data, and then typically you like to run parallel for at least a month, if not 2 months, to make sure that everything is working well. So it's a lot of money. I think when I switched to Diamond, Pinoca and Rocky Mountain House did it the same time, but it was about $350,000 10 years ago, so it was expensive back in the day. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's something that we really have to do. And they're big software systems. There's not a whole lot of options out there. Is there any questions? No? Okay. The next one I will turn over to communications. They're looking at a website redesign.
Thanks, Betty. Thanks, Council. I'm not sure if there's much more I can add following my comments yesterday as well as during service level. I felt great support around the table when I mentioned the possibility of a new website. It is not as onerous as a major financial software update, but it does take some work. And if we are successful enough to get that municipal intern, I've already told Dean that I will. This is a great project for that intern to take on. If not, I'll do it again. I've done it before. And with the department growth since 2019, the last time we had a refresh, I've got no doubt that we'll manage the project in-house just fine. What the actual cost will be determined by the RFP process, that if council passes the budget with this in it, then we'll get that out the door pretty quick. We've already got some draft notes from other municipalities who've done this quite recently on how to make sure we get exactly what we want early in the process.
I think everybody's happy with it.
Thank you, Council.
I was just gonna say the CAO might like to speak to
Okay,
this
so
one.
the next one is basically a housing needs assessment. This was an initiative that actually from council to work jointly with Clearwater County to do a regional housing needs assessment, which incorporates everything from seniors housing to affordable housing. In talking with the county CAO, both councils passed the budget for the needs assessment. We would bring it to ICC just to clearly define the scope of the study.
Any questions from anyone? Looks like we're all happy. Thank you.
Do you want to address the next ones? Yeah.
The next one is the self-contained breathing apparatus for the fire department. So at ICC meeting, the fire department brought up a program to replace all of their breathing apparatus. And basically throughout the department and standardize it to a different manufacturer. Just for council's information, we 2 years ago, we actually replaced all of them through a program through over 3 years. They're finding difficulties with those ones that they purchased, so they're looking at going to a different manufacturer now. So imagine the existing ones would just go to the training department. I don't know if members of ICC want to comment any further.
Councilor Schiffel.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Mr. Kraus, can you comment on, this has been on our budget in the past couple of years where we've been paying for breathing apparatus. So the new stuff that we had purchased doesn't work anymore, or I don't understand why we'd have just bought and now we're buying again.
I am not clear on that. I think the fire chief was trying to explain that at ICC, just that they're stuck with that one manufacturer now and it's not interchangeable. So they want to switch out to a type of SCBA that is more compatible and interchangeable, is from my understanding.
Counselor Stalker. Thank you, Mayor Bonifest. The current ones that were just purchased over the last 3 years, I think you may have said, but.
Yeah, it was a 3-year program. The town put in 66,000 per year over 3 years, and that program ended 2 years ago.
Okay, so there may be some as old as 5 years, and those aren't functioning, or they just want to have them all line up as the same equipment so they're interchangeable?
I would actually have to bring the fire chief in to
Yeah,
get into the
that would be the
detail. I
case.
mean, he explained at ICC, but I don't know if any of the ICC members have input on that.
Counselor Shipple?
Thank you, Mayor Bonifus. I'm going to suggest we put a marker on this one. We leave it in the budget, but we get clarification as to why we have to do it, understanding we put money in every year for years.
Yeah.
And so moving forward, is it a need or a want? If it's a need, then I think we have to look after it. If it's a want, then I think possibly we can just wait a while. So I think we need just clarity on this one item. So can we just put a marker on it and
Yeah.
place it? And
Yeah, so I would suggest council just pass a motion that it's brought up at ICC for clarification.
okay, I'll also make that motion that we bring the item of self-contained breathing apparatuses up at the ICC meeting relative to the $50,000 request for replacement breathing apparatuses.
Could I add a friendly amendment to that as well, please? Could we also have their records and the manufacturers of the Scott Air Packs they have now? Because they're saying that they need to be replaced, and I'd like to have that written in down where it says that every so many years that you have to replace all the equipment. Just for legalities.
Counselor Shipple?
Okay, I'm thinking a second motion.
Sure.
If we can, we'll do the first motion and second
First
motion,
motion.
just for information, request that.
Okay, so we have a motion to bring this back to ICC for further information. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, I'll call that for a vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Counselor Shipple.
Thank you. I'll make a second motion, and that motion is requesting further information as to the present breathing apparatuses that are in the inventory as to life expectancy and reasons for replacement.
Perfect, thank you. Motion's on the table. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Good for the next one?
Yes, please.
So the fire department annual ask for a capital budget line item, total of 30,000, where our contribution is $8,050, and they use this to replace minor capital items.
Any discussion? How old is their, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Counselor
Thank you,
Mulder.
Mayor Boniface. Just if I could get some clarification, what is a PPV in the description? It's an acronym I'm unfamiliar with. Pressure washers, pumps, PPV replacement.
I would
Anyone?
have to ask clarification from,
Okay, so
that's
we
how it
don't-
was presented to us.
That's
so
fine.
at ICC.
That's all I need, thank you.
I would say again, how old is the pressure washer and the pumps that they have now? Are they failing or what? I mean, is there any reason these items have to be replaced? Are they like 20 years old, or?
No, I think how they budget for this is a contingency fund just in case their pressure washer or pumps go down.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a different practice than the way the town budgets.
Right.
So,
Right. How's everybody feel about this line item? Counselor Musker?
Thank you, Mayor. It's $8,000. I don't feel that it's a big deal to spend a lot of time on.
Okay. Okay then. Okay, great, thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Kraus.
so the next one is a command unit, which is not the picture, so don't, basically, it's one of the trucks for one of their officers to use is basically what it is. So they're replacing it in 2026. So our total cost of a $150,000 truck is $34,000.
Counselor Stalker?
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I had a question, because if the picture isn't representing it, that was my first.
Yeah, no.
I went, looks like fairly good value. Is this just like a 1-ton type of vehicle we're looking at?
I think they buy 3/4 tons.
Oh,
You can see
3/4
them
tons.
driving around town.
Yeah.
It's the trucks the officers use to respond to this.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Shipple?
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I have no problem with this one. I think we can move forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Please proceed.
Sean, do you want to come?
Good morning again. Again, I guess I'll start briefly with an overall sort of the fleet. We do have a replacement program and policy for the fleet. In general, we try and get the most value out of our vehicles and then market them before they're, completely destroyed. And so we do track the expenses for all of our vehicles and then, use that and develop a score system. And when the vehicle exceeds that score, to do them. And then we also try and look at overall what the fleet functions are. Which brings us to the transit van. This vehicle is 14 years old. We're looking to replace this one because, again, it is getting up there in age. Also, we're just not finding it as useful as we'd like. Right now, it's our meter van, and it's pretty much only used for that because it's not as useful to us as some of the other vehicles in the fleet. So we'd be looking at replacing it with like a light-duty truck, 4 doors, so we can put meters inside and keep them warm. Because right now, this vehicle particularly does not stay warm enough in the winter, and it's just not useful for us right now. So that's why it's on the docket for replacement for that function. Is there any questions on the van? Okay. Which brings us to Unit 450. This is a very long work truck. Again, it's a pretty rough vehicle after years of use. Again, it's used a lot by the summer students, and we use it for a lot of vehicles. It's one of our primary tow vehicles and everything else. So again, this one is going to start costing us a lot of money in maintenance and repairs, and so we'd like to sell it at auction while we can still get good value for it. Is there any questions on Unit 450?
Thank you.
That brings us to the box blade for the skid steer. Right now, we're seeing our parks and operational staff occasionally we're asked to do small grading jobs around ditches, around the parks and whatever else. And right now, we have the grader, but we don't have anything sort of a step down from the grader. And the grader, is, much as Rob will probably disagree as an ex-operator, is not always the right tool for the job. So, sorry. So this would just give us a little bit more, and so we can be a little bit more efficient in those operations. We don't have to get someone in to do those things. Any questions on the?
Counselor Shipple?
I'm just asking some of my councillor friends. I've never seen this piece of equipment in operation ever.
Okay.
So this is a new piece of equipment in my mind. So I guess for those in the construction industry, is this something that you guys have seen? Does it work? I mean, I look at it and I go like, how the heck does this work? Does it work?
Yes, I have one. I use it a lot.
We'll just borrow yours.
Perfect. Any further questions or? Okay, that brings us on to the Quonset. Again, I thank council for attending the tour, so it was good to see this building in person. So this is for the Quonset replacement. The Quonset is useful for public works because we do need an heated indoor space for our paints, our volatiles and whatnot. We keep other things in there, but again, things we don't want in the larger shop. So having a space like this is quite important for us operationally without the full expense of, bespoke building and a shop for it. So again, but the Quonset is well past its end of life. I think it's pretty much held up by the door at this point. So we would like a replacement for that one. Is there any questions on the Quonset?
Would you be going to a straight wall building or another Quonset?
Right now, we are looking at quotes. A straight walled building is preferred because then we can build a structure off of the building and sort of park vehicles underneath it to sort of thing it, or we can build, things adjacent to it and protect those things from the weather. So a straight wall building is preferred as opposed to this style of Quonset building. But again, we're still in early stages, so it really depends on cost. If the structure like this is significantly cheaper, well then that's the way we'll go.
Councillor Stalker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Was the plan, upon completion of the other building, to tear this one down? Is that what we're looking
It would replace this one, yes. So
at? Okay.
originally, we were thinking of moving it, but then again, this location is quite convenient for us because it doesn't eat up into the yard space, and the shed next to it can be moved. So one of the earlier proposals was to build it somewhere else and then remove this, but right now, the way we're looking at it is a replacement structure in the same foot. Slightly wider, but again, it depends on the price quotes and what the most efficient footprint is for the dollars.
And is the 350 incorporating that cost of getting rid of this building?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussions? Good, thank you.
All right, that brings us to the Kubota tractor. We're looking at, this one is due for replacement. This one is used pretty hard. Again, two of the most hardest activities you can do with the vehicle is snow clearing and mowing grass. They're just really hard on equipment. We are looking for a slight upgrade in this tractor with a cab. Right now, this tractor doesn't get a whole lot of use in the winter because it lacks a cab. So that'll allow us a little bit more flexibility in clearing things and doing things and making it sort of an all-season vehicle for us, which will help us in clearing roads, trails, parking lots, and everything else. Any questions on the tractor?
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Mayor. Bottom end mechanical issues, I'm assuming that's in the engine
Yeah, and the transfer case.
transfer case. Is there any trade-in value that you're aware of? Yeah?
There
Maybe not.
is, yeah, and I'll let Betty speak to exactly how the trade-in value gets accounted for, because we do try and sell the vehicles in a sellable state, right? Because before they're clapped out or,
Sure. I just know with the name Kubota and the orange paint, it does have some trade-in value, so, yeah.
Basically, if we sell a vehicle, it'll show up on the financial statements, whether there's a gain or a loss. So we take what our proceeds are, less whatever the net book value is, and it'll show up.
Okay, thank
and
you.
these vehicles are normally sold at an auction.
Okay, so you mentioned just in passing that you prefer to get rid of them in a sellable condition.
Yeah.
Does that mean you want to repair this before you send it to auction?
It is in a currently functional state, like, so
Okay.
it does work, but we're concerned that there's
Getting
going to be
noisy?
more problems. Once there's,
Right. It's getting noisy.
yeah,
Okay, very good. Thank you.
don't know of a polite way of saying that, but yes. It was fixed once, and it looks like it's gonna need fixing again here soon. That brings us to the asphalt replacement program for the industrial area. In the industrial area, the roads in the bottom right of the map there the roads are quite rough. They were requiring a lot of maintenance from our staff, especially in the freeze thaw. The crown was not established, which is the bow in the road that directs the water to the concrete, so our crews are spending a lot of time out there. So these roads were done. The industrial roads only received their first lift, because we get sort of an economies of scale. If we can get an asphalt contractor to do a bigger job, we get a lower per unit rate. So by doing these sort of things all as Single bigger project, we get a lot. This one is probably costing about a third to half of it's like a full road rebuild by doing it this way. So it's a much better way of doing it. It also allows the asphalt to sit for a year. So if there's any problems with compaction or underneath, they'll show now. We can fix them and then before we put on the final lift. So this is sort of the finishing of that asphalt program and putting on the second lift of that. And then we can finish off the industrial area, which again, our guys were really happy the last 2 years not to be out there as much. Because again, these roads were time sinks. Because again, the freeze thaw cycle in the water really hurts us, and we'll have a really strong crown out there when we're done. So again, operationally, we're quite happy with this one. And again, just in the general philosophy of why we replace roads, again, we replace roads to protect the investment in the roads, because roads are expensive. Once they start failing, we get water intrusions and they'll start affecting the base. The average service life of a road is only about 35 years. We can't replace 1/35 of the roads in town every year. So that's why we do these overlays and these other programs in order to stay on top of it and everything else. This is an important part of our asphalt program because this is significantly more cost effective than our patching program, which is quite expensive on a per area rate. Any questions on second lift? Okay.
Thank you.
There's some work that needs to be done on the concrete planters along Main Street. Some of these planters have started to come off. They're not attached properly, so they need to be touched up and fixed. And this is an account to go through these planters and replace the top caps and the rock faces on there.
Councillor Stalker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. With the discussion we had earlier about maybe snow removal issues, is this, those were the planters you're speaking of. Is it worth waiting to come back and see what that, where that discussion comes to, whether or not it's, no? Okay, thank you. We just had, it's not worth waiting, so. Onwards.
Thank you.
That brings us on to the airport. The runway sweeper. So the runway, they're not allowed to use chemicals. They can't use salt. They can't use a lot of the other aids for getting rid of the snow. So they use a sweeper to keep that level down so it's plowed and then it's swept to get that last little bit. And then surprisingly enough, that gets rid of the ice. Sublimation is the primary factor in which that works. It actually works on our roads as well. Most of the ice just goes right into the air because the air is so dry. So if we can get enough of the ice down, we actually get a clear runway for the winter. So again, that does come down to service levels. So the last few years, that is the service level that the airport's been running at is swept runways to try and keep the operational days of the airport as high as practical. The piece of equipment is very old and very temperamental. So the airport is looking to replace that piece of equipment. Any questions on the airport sweeper?
Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Is this a shared cost with the county?
It is.
And what percentage? Is it 50/50?
Any other questions? Okay, please proceed.
There's also a need for a new mower out at the airport, just for maintaining all the green spaces adjacent to the runway and all around it.
Councillor Stalker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. The new mower is replacing one, or this is in addition to?
This is replacing, yeah.
Replacing, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Taxiway rehabilitation. So this is just a small patching program. Quite a few of the taxiways are failing. They weren't built to the appropriate standards. They don't have the appropriate bases under them, so they're failing earlier than expected. So we're just going in and doing spot repairs. This program is just those spot repairs for those portions of the asphalt. You'll see later when we get into the 10-year plan, there is a larger plan. This is to sort of limp us along till we get to that plan, if that makes sense. There we go. Runway and taxiway rehab. So, there is a STIP grant for airport upgrades. The runway, the surface of the runway has sort of seen the end of its useful life. It started rubbeling. The surface of the runway is starting to get quite rough. We're starting to get small spalling and rocks off of it, which will deteriorate faster. The rate of deterioration will increase because now we're getting standing water sitting on the runway, and that will start eating the runway. We also have a couple of transverse cracks in the runway, which are of concern. So the runway's due for some rehabilitation. It doesn't need to be replaced, but it does need to be refinished and whatnot. And runway asphalt is very different than road asphalt, because I've tried to take what I know from road asphalt and apply it out at the airport, and I've been told I'm incorrect multiple times, but it's quite a different environment. And we're hoping to include a bunch of the taxiway rehab as part of this grant and roll it all up into sort of one larger project. The big part of this, though, is we do need specialized engineering services to get those grants and do the proposals on what sort of work should be done to the airport, because that's outside of the administration's area of expertise and whatnot. So we're hoping to bring on some support for that, and that's what that capital item is for. Questions on that? Thank you. Okay. Main distribution station pump. So again, we try and replace the pumps. It works out to about a pump a year. They're not always replaced. Sometimes they're sent off for refurbishment. It depends on the pump, but they're taken out of commission and they're sent out to the manufacturer, and they go through the pump and say, this needs to be fixed on it or it needs to be replaced, and it's sort of done on a preventative maintenance, and this is the annual item for one of the pumps at the water plant.
Thank you.
49th Street. The water and sewer under 49th Street. The water line, which is the primary motivator for most of our underground replacements, just because when it fails, it tends to fail catastrophically, requiring an immediate repair. The water line under 49th Street has had a couple breaks on it, and it's also undersized. It's a 100 millimeter pipe. It's a cast iron pipe. So we're looking at replacing this one also based on the age of the pipe and upsizing it to the current standard of 150 millimeters or a 6-inch, which is required for fire flows and hydrants and everything else. So this is sort of a required one. Also, the sewer in this one is a vitrified clay tile product, which is problematic for operations. It's quite a brittle product after it's been in there for so long. So there's a couple spots in the sewer line that also are damaged, and we'll just replace the whole thing when we do it while we have the road open. We'll pave the road and redo the sidewalk to a higher standard along the east side of the road. Is sort of the plan with that one.
Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. This is one of the most significant projects we have going this coming year that you're projecting. I think what we need to take note of is $1.8 million for one block.
Yes.
We have a lot of blocks in Rocky Mountain House. I think that this is an interesting number that we keep in mind as we look at what our infrastructure underground looks like for future years. Scares me. I remember a block for $1 million, so $1.8 million is up there.
It is. Anecdotally, again, that's why our repair programs are so important, our flushing programs, and we do expect to have some breaks. I will say Rocky, overall, our infrastructure is in a very good condition. We've managed to stay on top of maintenance. A lot of Rocky Mountain House was built in the 60s with a lot of cast iron pipe. Cast iron pipe, the method of failure is often corrosion. We do have a lot of pinhole leaks in our system that do grow, but we're managing it, we're staying on top of it, we're not incurring an infrastructure debt like some other municipalities where they find all of a sudden they're behind and their rate of repairs go very much. It is fortunate or unfortunate, depending on your point of view, but Public Works has gotten very efficient at water break repairs. And so we just need to make sure that we stay on top of it. We have about 10 breaks a year, and we just want to maintain that sort of level. So we watch that rate really closely, and that's why water is our primary motivator for where we repair, because those are where we have the most urgent repairs, and those are the most costly repairs for us. So it's done to save money. We don't replace water lines just because we like the new water lines. We're doing it to save money overall in the things. And once a pipe starts repairing, it starts becoming problematic, right? So, and this one is a bit special because we also do need to upgrade it to service everything else on there.
Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I think it's this, probably the street that I as a councillor get the most complaints about in terms of the surface. That's the one,
Yes.
used to be in front of Glen Sports Line, so.
Yeah, and
it's
that's why
good-
we've held off on repairs as well, because we knew this was coming up, and we don't want to be
Yeah.
paving a road and then ripping it up. So it is a catch-22 when the road is also poor.
Is there any potential planning to continue north on, because that whole street is bad?
There is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
so that pipe is, the same pipe continues farther north. We've just had fewer issues with it, so it's further along in our 10-year plan. But it is
Okay, yeah.
on the plan, but it's not as urgent, so
Okay, yeah, it's-
again, water breaks and other things are a prime motivator, and we are reactive in a
Okay.
lot of ways, just because that makes more sense.
Thank you.
That brings us to our infiltration program. Our sanitary system, when it rains, it does see a large increase when it rains. So the sanitaries, there's two underground water systems. There's the storm system that takes storm water, that's our catch basins and everything else. And then there's our sanitary systems. They're two separate systems. They should remain separate, but we're getting a lot of rainwater in our sanitary system. This shows up in our lift stations, and it'll show up in our pumps. So it's quite costly to treat that water compared to it just flowing out to the river. So we want to reduce that inflow and infiltration through that. So this has sort of been an annual program. Some years it's not used. Some years it is. So far with this program, we've spray lined some manholes. We've done some work on manholes where we've noticed water infiltrating in. We've purchased little caps and diaphragms to keep the inflow from the manholes. We've also raised some manholes that were in a very wet area, that when it rained, the water would just flow right into the manholes. And we've actually had, a few years ago, one of our pump stations reach its capacity due to over a 1 in a 100-year storm. And so that's, of course, very concerning to us. So this is just sort of a program. We've been waiting sort of for a big rainfall again to sort of test our system after some of the last little changes, but we're looking at doing some spray lining and some other things of our sanitary system, because the water table in Rocky is actually surprisingly high. If you dig down 3-4 meters, you will hit water in Rocky Mountain House. It's just because the bedrock's so high, there's nowhere else for the water to go. And that, if there's any cracks or anything else in our system, it's making its way in, and again, costs a fair bit to treat.
Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Back in my previous years on council, we had a program, in the older parts of town, a lot of the people had their weeping tile draining into their sewer system.
Yes.
And that doesn't help us at all when it comes to treating that stuff. And we had a program trying to initiate and help people understand the implications that that had on our system. I wonder if we need to get into that kind of a program again, because in the older parts of town, in my life where I went into houses, I go like, oh, really, this is great. So, you know, if they could put in a sump and put that someplace other than in our sewer system, would make sense. I'm not sure if we can get a program like that going, because it could be advantageous to us long-term.
Yeah, I am aware of quite a few places where the weeping tile has been tied into the sewer, and again, you're not supposed to do that, or you're supposed to get special permission in order to do that in specialized cases. We are aware that there is a lot of properties in town where that is happening. We haven't prepared any educational or things with that as well. So it's just sort of we've just been sort of dealing with it.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Musgrave.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. We also have a program, if I remember correctly, regarding the sanitary sewers, a flushing program.
Correct.
So in my mind, is this maybe just a natural way to have a flushing program in place? I mean,
There's a very difference between the flow that our flusher puts out and these. So the flusher, like the torpedo used for flushing, really scours the walls of the sewer system and keeps it flowing, because grease, fats, oils on paper towels and flushable wipes are all things that clog up our system, and a little bit more flow from inflow or infiltration won't make it, but the servicing of it is absolutely different, if that makes
okay,
sense. It's not
so it does make sense. So there's more to our sanitary sewer flushing program than just adding some extra water to the system.
Oh, yeah, so the flushing is normally we start at the top end of the system and you go up and then you pull everything down, and then you have to chase it all the way down to the end, because you've just pulled a bunch of material down the system.
Okay,
The torpedo that does it, it shoots up the pipe, it's sort of water-powered jets, and it, sprays all around the perimeter of the pipe, because you'd be surprised, stuff ends up everywhere on the pipes, because when they're full, it just congeals everywhere.
okay, thank you for that visual.
Yeah.
I've heard enough, thank you.
The sanitary lift stations are looking at getting a new logic controllers. The current ones are outdated, and it's just sort of required for online monitoring. So, the Riverview engineering plan. This one is concept plan to see what can be developed for alternatives up in the Riverview development area. So I believe council's familiar with that one.
I just had a question.
Oh, Councillor Schlocker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. The Riverview Engineering Project, I certainly agree. I just wondered the funds, like, that we are attaching that to 200,000, is that, like, how did we arrive at that, I guess? Is that the going rate of that?
Again, so that's close to the going rate. It depends on the level of detail that's required. So for the initial phase, we've had sort of initial plans and whatnot, but it really does need that more detailed level of engineering, so.
Yeah, and it's going into a lot more details. We want to get like a design of it, plus do geotechnical on the site. So it's pretty comprehensive. We're really trying to get it down to ready for tender type drawings, so that we can initiate like a PIG 3 discussion or put out tender and review with council for staging.
So the project's ready to go, and we don't have to go through this process again prior to it going out. It's just sitting there ready to go.
Thank you.
Is there anything,
Do you guys want, don't you come here, 'cause I think between the two of you.
do you want me to jump forward to Muskeg Trail and do those while I'm sitting here? Yeah. Do you guys want to jump ahead to page 506 for me? (505) Oh, play structures, absolutely. So again, this is our third year of our phase playground replacement program. Again, the playground models, they do have effective years of service for them. Playground equipment is fairly highly regulated, so this is for replacement of the pieces of equipment that are required. Is there any questions on that? Lately, we've been trying to do about a trail a year. This year is redoing of an existing trail. The Muskeg Avenue Trail is in poor condition, largely due to roots. So it is due for replacement. Part of this program is removing some trees within proximity to the trail. So there will be a reduction in trees there. We'll try and keep as many trees that are practical, but there will be removal of trees, just so council is aware. It's just not feasible to keep those trees adjacent to the trail, because if we put down a new trail, we'll just have the same issue again. We have previously tried poisoning the roots or anything, but that, any other poisoning will kill the tree. And then we're gonna end up in the same state. So it's better to just do it all at once and have the removals all at once, rather than trying to put it down, trying to control the roots. We've been trying to control the roots for years, and we have not been successful in this area. So that's this sort of year's trail program. Any
Councillor
questions?
Musker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Have you looked into root pruning at all, rather than chemical treatment?
Yes, and that has been part of it, but again, the roots are well established for these trees and they keep coming back. But Jocelyn at Parks has been actively performing that, and for the other asphalt pads around town.
Right, okay, thank you. Oh, and by the way, I had no idea this was called Muskeg Trail.
I didn't know what to call it. If there's a map, if you go farther east of town, there's Muskeg Ave, and this just sort of lines up with
Okay.
it. So that's where the name came from. So, yeah.
Interesting, thank
I
you.
don't- It might even be on your map on your desk, but yeah, if it's out there. Yeah. I didn't know what else to call it, so.
Councillor Stocker.
Thanks, Mayor Boniface. The removal of those trees, I walked that hundreds of times. I'm wondering, looking from the outside, it looks like the cores are starting to deteriorate on those trees. Are we sensing, is that the case? I'm wondering if we've done the core samples to know if we should just be taking all those trees out of there.
No, I don't believe any core samples have been done on those trees. That's not part of our regular process.
Good morning. So, last year, after discussion in one of the council meetings about that walking trail, the parks manager had brought in a contractor and they went through and inspected all of the trees. And a good portion of those trees will have to come out because they are rotten. We didn't do cores, but with the visual, you could definitely tell that they're reaching the end of life cycle. They're splitting, which is going to cause us a lot of damage in the future. So,
I wondered if that wasn't the case. Thank you, and that's great to be out in front of that. I'm wondering if the whole stretch of trees, we should start at ground zero again and maybe look at shrubbery as opposed to taking out the ones that are bad, like I said, there's spruce trees in there as well as the cottonwoods, and just taking all of them out and starting over with shrubberies that aren't going to give us that dang problem of the roots up ruining the trail. As well, people at some point, I'm hoping will do a little education up in front, because I mean, it is a beautiful walk through there.
Oh, yeah.
But if we don't tell people that they're gonna come down those trees, they're gonna be wondering why
And
we're
that those
doing it.
trees are coming down because they're at the end of their life. They are going to become maintenance problems, and they are affecting the trail. It's not, we're not just cutting down brand-new healthy trees. The $80,000 includes some minimal landscaping. We could increase that to plant some new tree plantings of an appropriate species that's durable and less root prone in that, if council so desires.
So I guess I'll ask the question, was there consideration given to taking them all out?
That is the current intent, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I
there
didn't
was,
realize
but it's
that.
more of a phased approach than doing it all in one season.
Yeah.
You run into a lot of the people don't want to see those trees gone, which is huge. To make so we're not going back to do repairs on the walking trail, where the trees would be removed, that portion of walking trail would be repaired, and then the following year would see another stretch going in there. More of a phased approach than going in and wiping everything out and then trying to come back in and replant a new species for that area and walking trail.
Thank
That's
you, I got the
huge
vision
cost.
now. I thought we were gonna take one here and then one further down, but that makes complete sense. We're in great shape, thank you.
Councillor Boniface.
this kind of fits right in on this, that FCM email that we got a little while ago was urban forestry plans and studies funding application. That would be a good, would that be a good fit on this? Because I was thinking this is a great program, but didn't know where to put it.
I'm not familiar with that program, sorry.
You
I'll
wouldn't?
have to
Okay, one of us, okay. Okay, go ahead.
I wasn't aware of that one either, but I know the parks manager is all on the saving money and applying for different grants and whatnot to help out with these programs. So
Yeah, I think it's, could be 180 or 80,000. I remember an 80 in there, but 80,000 is nothing to sneeze at either. So that would be a good one.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Yeah, we know that trees don't last forever, right? And cottonwoods are prone to get real messy as they get to their end of life. And, you know, for those who may be concerned that they want to keep all these trees, eventually they're going to come down on their own in a windstorm, right? And there'll be no control over that, and then fences are taken out and maybe buildings. So I think it's great. It also opens up an opportunity for commemorative tree planting, right? It's pretty dense in there with these mature trees, and people may want to plant some commemorative trees, like in honor of individuals. So I'm all for it.
All right, that brings us to the outdoor washroom in the active district. And that was discussed at service levels. The town is looking at adding some of the concrete structure wash facilities. Council would like to see one out at the bike park. Then that's that capital project.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Boniface. Just if this, I'm not sure if the photo in the book is representative of what we're gonna get.
No,
Okay, just that I see power going there, and I'm going like, I wasn't looking for anything that elaborate, so.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. That's over to you.
Good morning, council. Yeah, we'll start on page 497. Would be the Emperingham Arena roof structure upgrades and repairs. You're familiar that we had the engineers in, did the study, recommended some repairs. This is the next step of having those repairs done. Quite likely we'll seek a second opinion on the engineering. Similar to what the curling club did. They had the one company in, they had a second opinion. They came up with a much more economical plan for their repairs. Ours are not likely to the scale that the curling club has had to do, but we will have to do some repairs. So we've budgeted, I've put in a fairly significant contingency because once you get in there, we're not sure, so.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I'm just wondering about the number. So this is our budget, we're approving a number, and you got 470,000 in the budget. The curling club found a cheaper alternative through their engineers. Do we need that number that big in here, or if we're approving this number could be significantly too large? I just question, do we have the right information to have this number in our budget into today?
A portion of what's in this budget has already been for the engineering that the previous engineer provided us with the drawings. So we'll look at getting that. The cost estimates that they provided us with was about $350,000 to do those recommended repairs. I'm very hopeful. I know it's a big number. I'm really hopeful that once we get it re-engineered in a new plan, that it'll come in significantly less. But I don't want to get caught with, oh, I have to come back to council because the new plan, and once it goes out to tender, comes in at higher than that. So I'd prefer to have a little bit too much in there and have it, and it would be a cost share with the county on this, so. Yeah, I agree, it's a large number, but I'd rather be safe than have to come back at a later date, but.
Can we be kept abreast of how this is working out in the end?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Stockton?
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I wondered if the plan is, initially the curling rink, I believe we're looking at just repairing a few, and now they've moved to reinforcing all of them, is that, I guess I'm wondering if the plan here is just to address the ones that, the engineers, or,
Again, that's gonna depend maybe on what the next engineer tells us.
Oh, okay.
This plan that we got from the engineering firm was only to repair the trusses that needed attention. But it may come down to, it may be economical for us to just do them all, but we weren't in that state that the curling club was, that required, a shutdown and shoring and all that other stuff, so I'm anticipating that. We'll, again, we can come back to council with a report, here's the best bang for our buck.
thank you.
And we are sort of intending to, as soon as the ice is out, get them in so they can do their further assessment and hopefully get it all done in that 4-5 month window when the ice is out.
When you're budgeting these projects, and you indicated it was $370,000 and you're $100,000 over budget on that, this might be a question for Betty. That $100,000 that we're putting into this budget over and above what it's potentially going to cost, does it create a shortfall somewhere else?
No, it doesn't. Basically, these are being funded, our 50% is coming out of the reserves, and the other half's coming from the county. And any project, if it comes in under budget, the funds just go back into wherever they came from. So it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this project?
No.
The next one is a new purchase of a new walk-behind floor scrubber at the recreation center. Again, the one we have is going on 10+ years, and it's costing us money to do repairs, so we're looking at a replacement of that walk-behind scrubber. We have a ride-on, but this walk-behind is smaller and gets into the dressing rooms and some of the hallways where we can't get in with the ride-on scrubber.
Councillor Stockton?
Thanks, Mayor Boniface. I was wondering about the scrubber there at the rec complex, and then the 805 capital ask for the ride behind for the, I think it was the Lousopet Center. Is there any availability, like I don't know how often it's used at the Lousopet Center to move the ride-along one that's here? Sounds like it may not be the most effective tool in the rec complex, and move it over to the other?
We have an inventory of scrubbers that we move back and forth, but we have a ride-on at the rec center, which we purchased just a couple years ago, so it's still relatively new. The one at the Lousopet that we'll see later, again, is older, it started to fail, so again, that one's designed specifically, it's at the Lousopet, but they can be moved back and forth within our inventory of equipment.
So the ride-on one, you had made a comment and it didn't quite register. The ride-on one that's at the rec center, is that not the most effective equipment there?
Oh, no, it is.
Oh,
We
okay.
use both.
Yeah, okay, there we
Yeah,
go, thank
yeah,
you.
no, the ride-on scrubber, that we have at the recreation center is used daily, and it covers a larger area and saves my staff having to walk behind a scrubber.
Yeah.
So it's the same with the one that we're looking to replace at the Lousopet. Again, large floor area, it's much more efficient and time-saving to use the ride-on scrubber.
Thank you.
Next one, arena kickboard replacement. And again, it's just part of our board replacement program. last year we did the puck board, which is the white board around the arenas. This year, we're looking at replacing all the yellow strip at the base of the arenas and doing both arenas at the same time. They get beat up pretty much, so. And it'll be done in-house. Our staff will take care of that. The life cycle study at the pool, again, part of the facility assessments, we're looking at the domestic pipes and fittings, and this was an estimate provided by the consultants that did the life cycle assessment. So, any questions on that? The chlorine system upgrade at the pool, project 7319, and again, last summer we brought in the same company that we use at the water treatment plant. They did an assessment of our chlorine system at the pool. It's aging, and it's time to put in a new system there. So new equipment and rebuilding the feed lines, and so again, it's just one of those life cycle things that needs to get done. Any questions on that? Project 7501, the fitness equipment replacement. Yeah, most of that equipment in the fitness center was purchased in 2015, just when we did the expansion out of the fitness center. Many of them still in great shape because we maintain them well, but they're getting to the point where if something fails, they're not making the parts anymore. We don't have access to the parts. So we have a program in place looking at replacing certain numbers of equipment over the next 3 or 4 years to just maintain that equipment. And really, this commercial equipment is expensive. Each piece is almost $10,000 each, so you're getting a couple of pieces of equipment a year. So, we've had this on our capital plan for a number of years. We've been able to push back, but this is the year we're going to start with replacing some of the equipment.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Mr. Amend, could you speak to the usage of the fitness center?
Yeah, we saw that in the operational budget where when we look at the revenue that we're generating at the fitness center, that just speaks to the number of members, of the community members that have purchased memberships, drop-in use. We actually have a program with, as an example, the Junior B Club has purchased a group membership, so their players can come in and use it. So we're seeing the fitness center, the use it's probably one of our most used facilities that we have. And maybe before, I think, well, Mr. Schwader, do you want to speak to the wayfinding signage program? I can. Okay, I'll jump ahead to page 508 and 509, which are two equipment purchases. The one is the ride-on floor scrubber that we just sort of talked with regard to, and again, it's replacing the scrubber that's costing us more on repairs and recycling. So it's a $30,000, but it's certainly a piece of equipment that we do need. And then the item 810 is replacing of the dishwasher. And again, the one that we have is old. It's failing more than it's hard to repair. So we're looking at replacing that one.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. These floor scrubbers, do they have any value as used pieces of equipment?
We'll try to, look at a trade-in value to the company that we purchase from.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. This dishwasher, new trend is if you buy your chemicals from a specific company, they put the dishwasher in free of charge. For example, Ecolab, who is probably the largest in that, you buy the chemicals, they come in once a month and they ensure that the thing is working. If there's any plugged spray nozzles or anything like that, they make sure it's clean. So from a health perspective, the machine's getting looked at once a month, whereas if we buy one, we have to buy that service. So I'm wondering, rather than a $15,000 expenditure to purchase one, that we look at a chemical supplier for that and get the maintenance program with that at the same time. And if the thing craps out, then they replace it themselves. So, yes, you have to sign a contract.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at that, but sometimes like, at this point, our staff are doing all the maintenance and we can do it in-house. The quotes that we got were from 3 different companies that, you know, as per our purchasing policy. And that's sort of what we're working with right now, but we certainly can look into, you know, most of our supplies that now are purchased locally. You know, so we're not bringing somebody in from, you know, perhaps out of town, but we certainly can look at that type of a program.
I just like the health and safety aspect of that. Dishwashers have a tendency of getting abused, used, and ran with no water, and things don't happen with water temperatures. And by having somebody come in once a month and double check that, to me is, and I understand the staff can do that, but when you have the expert come in and do it, you're pretty much guaranteed what goes on. I know it's not a big expenditure, but it doesn't even have to be an expenditure if we go to a chemical supply company.
We can certainly look into that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You got yours?
Yep. Morning, Mayor, Council. Regarding the wayfinding signage program, we discussed this at service level. We're going to scale it back for 2026, Phase 2. It'll be more the active district area, recreation facility, bike park, splash park area, and also pedestrian signs along Main Street as well. Budgeted amount is $50,000.
Councillor Shipley.
Thank you. Off-topic subject, update on what's happening now.
Oh, regarding Phase 1? So presently, they're putting in secondary vehicular signs on Highway 11A. They put in the mapped signs as well as the directory signs will be done before Christmas, and as well as the primary vehicular signs on Highway 11. They've been postponed until April because of the footings were too shallow. So that's where the status is with that.
So, sorry, thank you, Mayor Boniface. I just want to, so how many signs are we getting? And we're getting them before Christmas. So what are we,
Before
where
Christmas?
are we going to see signs at?
So Laura can correct me if I'm wrong here, but 6 secondary signs on Highway 11A. We've got 6 trail map signs that are situated throughout the community, as well as 4 directory signs.
You will see new signs along Highway 11A by the Main Street intersection, 48th Street intersection, as well as 60th Street coming up from the water treatment plant intersection. And the large directory, one by the tennis courts, Big Rock. The small maps are existing where we have them on the trails, as well as 3 additional new ones. And then the Highway 11 signs are coming in the spring, as Mr. Schrader mentioned. I can find a map and send it to you all, showing you exactly where they'll be.
Councillor Slow.
I had a question in relation to the signs on Main Street, what we're trying to point out or what we're trying to provide on the Main Street signs, and additionally, just a comment in relation to waiting for the active area signs. What are we just directing people that here is the pump park or here's the skateboard park? I'm wondering what the content of the signs is going to, what we're anticipating.
Are you inquiring about the ones that are like being installed this week, or the ones that are that were Phase 2?
Well, the ones that are being sold this week, I think it'd be for council, or at least myself, to see what we're getting for the price of those ones first before we spend another $50,000 on these. But what I was inquiring about is in relation to what we are going to put on the signs in the active area and on Main Street, what's going to be on there. Is it historic stuff or?
So that hasn't been determined yet, and I believe council's direction from the service level was that administration would be coming back to council with that specific program in the new year. Dean, does that sound right to you? Okay.
So you're asking the question, what's on the signs in phase one?
No, I think we're gonna be able to see that relatively closely, shortly, that's coming. I'm wondering what the phase two signs on Main Street are going to say, what they're directing us to, whether it's historic information, and then the active area, what those signs are going to incorporate. Are they pointing us to the pump park, or pointing, like, I'm wondering what's on these signs. I'm fine with where we're on the signs that are coming. We'll be able to see that relatively shortly. It's about the ones that are this expenditure, the 50,000 expenditure. I'm wondering what we're directing towards.
I'm trying to find the summary. Go ahead. I haven't found it yet, so.
I was just gonna comment, like, we kind of took, like, we're focusing on phase two, the larger scope. The phase two larger scope, and then Tiffany Robinson's, we switched it over to make it more feasible, I guess, for project or phase two. So in regards to the pedestrian ones, as you can see in the map, or in the diagrams there on the screen, they kind of show a map of the area where you're located, but also the other amenities that are close to you when you're on Main Street as well. We haven't, ironed it out completely as far as what's going to be on those signs. It was just a concept that we decided that may be beneficial for the pedestrians that are on Main Street.
And I think one thing about Main Street is we're using existing posts. So we used to have a 3-hour parking limit that we removed. So we still have all the posts for those signs. So now we're just looking at how can we utilize the existing posts to enhance downtown. I mean, this is a council initiative, right? I mean, we're just trying to respond to what council wanted.
Yeah.
I know it's not this council, and it was, so.
I guess I'd prefer to, I think your comment, Councillor Shipp, will put a pin in this and really flesh out, like, the other amenities on Main Street. I sense we're not going to be pointing out businesses, so then people are walking up and down Main Street. I don't know that they need to.
Actually, excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, no.
Actually, that is one of the options staff have talked about, is actually the ones on Main Street. Maybe that is an option. You can have a sign for a business saying, pointing down, the movie theater is down this way, or a specific store is this way. That is one of the options administration has talked about. I mean, but we haven't fleshed it out yet, because we don't know what council's direction is at the end of the day. Whether we're proceeding with the wayfinding project or not.
Question, please. The footings that you said needed to be replaced, I understand they sunk?
Yeah, the pilings that they poured sunk, and it was lower than what they required, I guess. So they have to come back in May, April to re-pour the cement pilings.
Will we be paying for that then?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, no. No.
Question.
No.
Councillor Schipel.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. So I'm just gonna throw this out there, that we delay this for a year. Wait to see what the signs look like, know where we're at. We haven't had them before. One more year. Let's save the 50,000 for a year. I'm just gonna throw that out there, see if it's got any traction. If it does, great, and if it doesn't, I'm okay with that too.
Councillor Spalter.
Sorry if there's others. I agree fully. I think we need to do that. There was a comment that I was provided by one of the members of the public in relation to the signage, the wayfinding sign project and the use of a QR code, which I think is the future of signs, that you're put an 8x8 QR code on the south side and north side of town, and people are coming into town, they scan that thing, and away they go. They know where everything is. I don't know if that's the future. I throw it out for discussion, maybe not here necessarily, but I certainly see there may be a cost recovery if it's pointing down the movie theaters this way or the bowling alleys this way or those amenities on Main Street. There may be a cost recovery aspect to that those businesses would support putting signs up. I think using a sign to point to the business, then we're leaving other businesses out and we're getting into picking again, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Councilor Muska?
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I'm in favor of Councillor Chappelle's proposal to postpone it for a year, but I'd just like to remind this council of something. We've just approved workover of the Muskeg Ave Trail without knowing exactly what we're getting, how many trees are going to be taken out, all that stuff. We do that with other things. We approve in the past having a new trail put in somewhere without knowing exactly the path it's going to take. We just know there's going to be a trail there. So I look at the wayfinding sign program a lot like that. We don't know exactly what's going to be on there until it's there. So, but we approve it in advance. And so, like I said, I'm in favor of postponing it if that seems to be the mood here. But let's leave the details to administration, just like we do in these other projects.
Councilor Schippel?
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. So the trail is maintenance. We're looking after what's already there. This is new. And some of the community discussions haven't been favorable to this whole program. So to get this discussion on the table, I'll make the motion that we delay this for 1 year, and it gives us the opportunity. So my motion would be that we delay for 1 year on the wayfinding sign program. And then my comment to that is, we'll then see what the signs look like, how the perception of the community is. We'll have just a better feeling. So I'll put the motion forward. We'll see where it falls.
Go ahead, please.
Just in regards to administration, I think we were thinking with the new parking lot and the new road system up at the museum bike park area, it would be nice to have some sort of signage up there to direct people where they need to go when they're up there through the summer when the bike park is opened.
So for that to happen, this would need to go forward, correct?
I'm sorry,
For the signage to go forward at the, we'll say at the active center there, we would need to approve what's here and not wait.
Correct, yes. Yeah. Wow.
Not in its entirety. What was presented to council there at the end of November was an option for the full implementation or a partial implementation. Even the partial implementation, which is what we have here today, 50,000, can be further reduced for the active district, which was where administration felt we really need to put some effort into with all of the recent investments the community and council has made in that area. We suggested in the active district $22,000, and that would what that looks like yet still has to be built out, but based on all of the wayfinding program adopted by council last year, and with the design work and mapping that's already done, that was the cost that we put towards council in November. The 50,000 that you asked us to bring forward here included the Main Street pedestrian as well. But if we set that aside, as well as any future vehicular signs, which are the big ones out on the highways, we can ensure the active district is taken care of with 22, so 30 with contingency. That's a high contingency. If council would consider that for the 2026, think of it as a plug-and-play part of the overall picture, but stands on its own because that area sees a lot of traffic and it's just going to get busier.
Thank you. Councillor Shipple first, and then Councillor Kaylin.
Okay, having heard that, I will amend my motion that we would do the wayfinding sign in the active district to a maximum of $25,000.
Settle it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion on it? Then seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. All opposed? Sorry. What? Thank you.
All right. Okay, we are,
Would you mind if we took
Yeah.
a break now, please?
yeah, we're
So
done
we'll-
the current project, so the next section is tenure, so it's
Yeah,
a,
I just want to talk on some carryover.
okay.
So,
We'll continue with Mr. Kraus and then we'll.
Oh,
do the
sorry.
carryover. That's fine.
so what's not shown in here is some carryover projects. So in discussion with council, council wanted the amalgamation of the Civic Center project and the new rec facility project amalgamated. So that is coming to council on December 16th. So it's not in your new budget, it's that we're amalgamating the two previous projects into one. So that's not shown in here, just so council's aware. And the second, which is not in here, if we are going to extend the life of this building 5 to 10 years, I need to, well, what I'm going to do is sit down with our maintenance staff and say, what do we need to do to get another 5, 10 years out of this building? And then I'll be coming back to council in the future, once we have that figured out, asking for an amendment to your capital budget for us to do that, just so council is aware.
Good. Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. One of the things in the operational budget that wasn't in there, and I know we're talking about capital here, going back to operational, was we were talking about doing a subclass for areas of town that didn't have water and sewer. And we didn't make any financial considerations for implications on taxation.
No.
And I'm just wondering, at what point does that happen?
That'll be an amendment, if council goes down that path, that'll be an amendment to the budget sometime in like probably February, by the time we've gathered enough data to bring back to council. So right now, well, council has seen the report that was previously presented. We now have the legal opinion for council to review. But what we're doing now is we are gathering every property that is not serviced with water and sewer. Ms. Quinn will be working on that after we're through the budget. Then we have to look at the assessment of each of those properties. And then council is looking at a 2% reduction in taxation for those properties. And so once we have all that data together, we can bring it back and see how it affects the budget. So it won't change the overall budget, you're just going to be shifting taxes from one assessment class to another.
At that point, we'll have already had our assessments completed, if I'm not mistaken.
Assessment has to be done by the end of February. Our assessors require to have it done by the end of February.
Okay.
So, but we'll have it closed by then, so.
Thank you.
Councillor Stalker.
Right, thank you, Mayor Boniface. I had a question for administration. If we want to revisit an item in the budget here, is that the process that we need to do now, or how does, there was an item I wanted to discuss with council around bulk water, and I didn't know where to bring that up.
I think the rate on item 7, council discussion, which is kind of the wrap-up. We can revisit anything that council wants to, because we've gone through a lot of information in a day and a half, you know, so that's what the purpose of council discussion is. Like, now you can reflect after you've gone through the whole thing, if that works.
Thank you.
Everybody's good? Then I'd like to call a break, please. Thank you. Welcome back, and we're ready for our 10-year capital plan.
All right, if you go to your 10-year capital plan, the first page on 512 is a summary of sort of a combination of things. I'd like to deal with it last, and I'd like to walk you through the 10-year capital documents first, and then we'll go back to it as kind of a wrap-up. So you have a number of sheets that are 10-year capital summary sheets. What I've done is I've put in, there's a roll-up of the revenue classifications, and then I've given you detail based on projects, and then there's the same thing for expenditures. So just so you understand what you're looking at, if you go to page 513, this shows you all of our capital projects by funding source. So when we do a 10-year capital plan, we go into each project that's listed and I find a funding source for it. So, first I go in and we've got the 2 grants that I spoke of, and usually with those, I try to find big projects because then we have less to submit on, but one's just over $1 million and the other one's around $500,000. So I fund those first, and then rec and airport are usually 50-50 with the county, and then basically anything else that's not funded would get funded out of reserves. So if you look at this sheet, you'll see one of the top lines says 5,100 capital grants. So you see that the total for 5,100 for 2026 is 1.5 million, and you can see that it's the LGFF. Right now, we're getting about 1,089,000. I haven't inflated that across the board because it does change depending on political climates and if they have extra monies or less monies, so we just keep that static. The next one that's the CCBF, so that is the Canada Community Building Fund, and we get about 460,000 for that. And then provincial grants, that's if we've got any one-time funding. You'll see that 6 million there. That's the STIP grant that we're hoping to be successful for the airport runway upgrades. So the first section is grants. The second section is capital reserves, and we split that by just our infrastructure reserve as well as the utility reserves. So it's showing you over a 10-year period what funds we're anticipating taking out of the reserves. And then below that, if we're anticipating any capital financing, that's where this would show up. And we could speak to these 2 projects when we hit them, but basically one is looking at the civic building, and we've had that in there for a number of years. The other one is looking at the potential for a new RCMP building. There's some funding from different sources, but if we were to undertake that, right now I'm looking at, we'd probably need to borrow $11 million to fund it, but whole different discussion, and it's farther out. And then the last line shows the county capital contribution. So this is what we're anticipating that the county would be giving to us on an annual basis over the next 10 years. So the first 2 pages the first page is your roll-up. I'm not going to go through each individual project on the revenue side, but then the next several pages show each individual project and its sources of funding. But let's skip that and go to page 523. So 523 is, again, it's a rolled up summary. It's by division, and it shows you what we're anticipating as capital projects over the next 10 years. So you'll see administration. Typically, admin doesn't have a lot of projects, but you'll see the big one is the civic building. it's been on the books for a couple years, and honestly, we just keep pushing it out if it's not gonna happen. And then there's all the other ones. I won't go through them. I would like to go through the 10-year plan briefly. I guess it's up to council if you want to have more discussion about some of the 10-year projects. But I guess I'm more interested in explaining to you the rationale that administration uses when we develop this and how we use it on a yearly basis. Is there any questions on the roll-up? No? Okay. So if you turn the page and go to 525, we'll start with administration. So every year when we start doing our budgeting process for capital, this is what we start with. So for instance, next year when we start looking at our 2027 budget, I basically pull this report, administration sits down with all the directors, and we review everything. Projects will get pushed in and pushed out depending on timing, operations. They try to plan one big replacement project a year, but say if something's starting to show more water breaks or repairs, they might shift things between the years. The other thing that we have tried to do, and you'll see it right under administration with the 1200 project, the replacement program, is even though we don't necessarily know that we've got projects, we use, I call them placeholders, but we will assign funds basically just so that we know that we're capturing potential future projects. If they're not needed, it just disappears. But it helps us build out over the 10-year time span so that we can say, okay, we think we're going to need this many millions of dollars.
Okay. Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you. Question on page 525, under protective services, policing. It appears that we have, it would be item 2103 and 2104, is the replacement of a 2017 Ford Explorer for the CPO. There's two in a row there, and they're both scheduled for the same year. Why would we schedule them for the same year? Are they same vehicle, or I'm not sure why we'd buy two in the same given year.
Well, again, this can shift back and forth. I think they probably put them in the same year because they're both 2017s. I believe we bought them both at the same time. I'm not sure. I mean, they absolutely could be moved in and out. And before they ever would replace a vehicle, they would look at the wear and tear on it, the maintenance, and determine whether it actually needs to happen before this would, but it's put in there because we know we're going to have to replace it.
Yeah, I guess my question is two in the same year for the same department.
Yeah, and that, do you want to come up and speak? We'll get some more expert opinions.
Hello. So with the two peace officer units, as Betty explained, they're not necessarily going to be replaced all in the same year. Right now, they're just a placeholder. Depends on how many kilometers, the condition of the vehicle in whatever year we just decide to replace it, and which direction council wants to go with that as well. So.
I mean, there's no problem with, we could push one out a year, just if that makes you feel more comfortable. But really, with the 10-year plan, we're trying to make sure we capture either new purchases, repairs, upgrades, vehicles, capture them within this 10-year plan, because when you see the rolled up version, it shows whether we've got enough funding over the 10 years to manage the purchases that we think we're going to have to do.
Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Yes, I'd like to see it pushed
Okay.
just that sometimes this becomes the Bible, and
It's never the Bible. Nothing is ever written in stone when it comes to these documents. Really, they're not. It's a placeholder. If you know me at all, I'm probably one of the cheapest guys you'll know. And when it comes to purchasing, we get wicked deals for our vehicles. And 2017 means nothing. If we can push it out 2 years, 5 years, I do it. And that's the way we've always done it. You won't see them both replaced in the same year. No way.
Just a comment on our process. Once we start doing serious budgeting in September and October, I mean, I send this out to all the directors. They review it, and if there's new things they need to add, we meet every week and basically review this over 6 weeks. So we review it once, they tell me changes, we go make the changes, we slide things back and forth. I review them. What I'm looking for is trying to manage the stream, because they all sometimes like to do too much, and I'm like, no, you need to, maintain a level that's actually doable. So these undergo a lot of transition over the 6-week period when we're looking at the capital budget. And there's a lot of discussion about whether it needs to be done or if it's necessary. It changes a lot over the period of our budget process.
Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. At that same page on 525, that the 28 million set aside for the RCMP, is that was that just kind of a ballpark, or I'm wondering how we arrived at that number?
No, so we monitor other municipalities that are in the same position as us. So I was actually in contact with the town of Morinville. They are in the same position as us. They're a town of closing in on 10,000, I think, and they're getting to the point where they have to provide a building, and they've gone out for cost estimates. So looking at about approximately the same size of detachment, it's 28 million for them. So they are in the same position as us, and they are revisiting their policing model. So.
I was hoping it was a ballpark, but that's a big expenditure. But thank you for getting a hardcore number. That's what we need to have.
Okay, so basically on page 1, I mean, there's administration. We really have very little in terms of that. Under policing, yes, we have the detachment, and we've addressed any CPO vehicles. Again, those are reviewed very carefully. We don't just wholesale purchase them. The fire is information that's provided to us from the Clearwater Regional Fire Division, so it's just numbers that they've provided us. They do update this, and again, we'll review it every year and look at what changes they have. And these do undergo a lot of scrutiny, I think, when it goes to ICC and then to each council. They go through these discussions quite closely. Under transportation, again, the 3104, that's what I would call a placeholder. So we just have monies set in there just so that when we're doing our long-range forecast of how much money do we think we need, we've got some funds set aside in there. And then as they identify specific individual vehicles, we pull that out and we'll drop it down into a specific project. So, I mean, you can see the first couple, they've identified that there's some vehicles that need to be replaced. In 2028, they're starting to look at, whether we need to replace a 5-ton dump truck. There's another one out in 2031, and et cetera, going down through. We've got, again, the same concept, a small equipment line that shows funds for every year, and as they identify it, then we pull things out. And you can see the ones that are listed for 2026. Any questions on that section? And they do have an underlying plan that I think the director works with the mechanic where they track all the equipment and they look at the repairs and they've got a more 10-year replacement plan of what they anticipate happening. Then under roads, this is where we start to get into sort of the major projects. We've got the snow dumps are still sitting on there. We've been dealing with them for several years. And sometimes these projects will overlap with projects that are listed under water and sewer if it's a full major upgrade. The biggest thing that we look at here is Rob and his staff have determined, where the weak points are and what roads that we're looking at, especially in the next 5-year window, because they're starting to see if there's, wear and tear, high repairs. These end up getting shuffled back and forth. We moved quite a bit in this year, just because they'd look at it and then it's like, okay, we got 2 big projects in 1 year. That's just not doable. Which one can get pushed out a year? Which one can get pushed back? So we go through this. There's a lot of discussion that goes around these projects. Do you have anything to add to that? No. Like you can see on page 528 at the very last project, 3248. So next year, we've got mill and overlay project that's looking at throughout town. So Sean was talking about how doing that can help extend the life of a road. So they're looking at, identifying specific areas that need that and then coming back with a more concrete plan once it's hit the current year. The airport, again, operations looks at that. They work in consultation with the airport manager, identifying, is there equipment that needs to be replaced? And, the big one is looking at the taxiways. That would only happen if we were successful in getting that grant. And I believe it's a 75% grant, and then the difference is split 50-50 between us and the county. Water, same thing as with the roads. If you look down, you'll see in 2029, we're looking at 47th Street. And then in 2030, we're looking at 51st Street. So we've got a couple big projects that have gotten pushed out because they're just trying to look at the timing and the cost of, how those roads are doing. Same thing with wastewater. There you see the Edgerton. Those costs, when we capitalize them will be split between the 3 major areas. So they'll go into the TCA as a road asset, a sewer asset, and a water asset. But again, we do try, and if look at the top of the wastewater, we've put in. Basically, it was $1 million, and then as projects get pulled down, because we know that there's going to be work that needs to be done. So we've put in placeholders all the way out, because that way we know it's like, okay, we've said we're going to need to spend money, and then when we go back and look at the reserves, that gives you a feeling of where your balance is. You'll see once we go back how this all rolls up into one kind of big idea. Cemetery, on an every other year basis, they found that it's beneficial to put in the concrete runs. Those are the runs that the headstones sit on. And they're also starting to look at that we may need to do a cemetery expansion. So we've put some money farther out in 2028. That's not written in stone. That kind of depends on how fast we fill up, if, just how that plays out, but it's identifying that we will be needing to look at something like that. And again, columbariums, we just put in 3 new columbariums, and I haven't checked the sales, but they're selling quick. So again, it's another alternative to having in-ground burials, and a lot of people are utilizing that as an option. if you turn the page, planning and development, they're pretty quiet. We just added in that Riverview Development Plan. And then recreation, again, we've put in placeholders because we know at the arena, same with the pool not so much. They've done a lot of major upgrades in the last 5 years. But we know there's going to be work that needs to be done at the arena to maintain the facilities and the equipment and the big systems that are in that building. So we put a placeholder in, and if it's not needed, it just disappears. If it is needed, we pull it down into a specific project. And then under parks, on page 531, I mean, you can see there's quite a few trails and playgrounds. I think operations undergoes a lot of discussions. I mean, they look at playgrounds and do a lot of planning on, the equipment has to be maintained to certain safety standards, and then continually either expanding or upgrading the trail system. We do have,
Sorry,
Oh.
1 second, please. Counselor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Back to recreation. At what point do we start to put a placeholder in there if we do look at a new complex? Do we start doing that now, or when does paper hit pen? Pen hit paper, sorry,
Yeah.
on that? When council gets more saying, yeah, we're gonna do this, or,
Yeah, so it's really a new concept this year, right? Council has asked us in this budget, or we're amalgamating 2 projects to explore it, right? So, that would hit the paper, the budget for next year. So we would have costs coming in this year on concept plans and how council wants to phase that. And then it'd be put in here. So, but then what comes out of here would be the civic building, so.
good. Thank you.
okay, and then, so basically then the last one is again the loose oppet. Next year, we've got some major infrastructure upgrades planned, so you'll probably see more details on that next year, unless we tell Wes no, and then we push it out a year. And again, we've got a placeholder in there where we, try to identify that, yes, it's gonna need ongoing maintenance, so that's kind of the 10-year plan, and this is a really active document that we actively work with when we start our budgeting process, and it forms the starting point for every year that we look at. I find it's been a really useful document. I mean, this is year 6, I guess. Building it the first year was a bit of a challenge, and it's probably not completely comprehensive. I mean, I'm sure there's more we could put in it, but we really try to keep the first 5 years as accurate as we can. 6 to 10 years out, a little bit more of a, it's like, okay, we kind of know these things are going to happen. So if you go back to page 512.
1 second, please.
Okay.
Counselor Stocker.
Thanks, Mayor Boniface. I thank you, Betty, for walking us through this, because I was having trouble trying to get the bigger picture, but you certainly helped with that. I was just wondering, back in capital, we'd placed washrooms for the pump park, and I'm looking at the outhouse installation on page 531. Did we incorporate that in the capital? I didn't. I'm wondering if that outhouse installation should have been in 26. Or
Well,
is that
down
a
at the
different
very
line?
bottom on that page, if you look at 7653, there's the 120 that I did update this plan to add
thank
that
you.
in.
Yeah.
Now, we already had 2 projects up under 7645. I haven't talked to these guys. I didn't change this, so I don't know if those are gonna be completely different outhouse installations, or if one of them will drop off, I don't know. Sorry?
The same units.
But will we need both of those, or will they one drop away?
No, we'll still need the extra two that are on the budget list.
And I apologize, because I didn't do as good a job capturing what I was here, and I didn't see line 7653 is already there. I knew your efficiency would have covered it. I knew you wouldn't have missed it. Thanks, Betty.
Okay, so now that you've sort of seen the process we go through, then what I do, and this is the rolled up summary, what I'm really looking at is I'm looking at sources of funding. I'm looking at what our planned expenditures are for the next 10 years. And then I'm looking at the reserve balances. So this is where it's kind of our double check to say, okay, do we have enough money to do this? So for example, if the rec center, if next year you say, put 50 million in here, I'm just picking a number, put 50 million out in 30 for a project. I'd do that and then look and see if we can finance it. And then come back and say, so to me, this is sort of your final double check. So if you look at the very top box, that's showing your projected revenues. So over the next 10 years, I'm looking at that there's projected revenues of $58 million. And then the required reserves that we'll need to pull that out. Okay, is we need to pull out $43 million out of reserves over a 10-year period for total revenues of $101 million of capital projects over 10 years. So that's sort of the projected revenue section. Under expenditures, I've broken this out by division. So this is just a roll-up of what we just walked through in terms of the projects that we've identified. This is where it becomes important, in my mind, to have the placeholders, because you're trying to anticipate what you think you're going to need 5 years out, 6 years out. Then what I do is I go down to the reserves. So I do a bit of a projection on the reserve. So right now we've got 2024 audited financial statements. We're in the middle of 2025 budget, so we know the monies that we're planning on putting in and taking out. So I come up with a projected opening balance. This year I've actually split the reserves into infrastructure and utilities because they're really used for very different purposes, and you technically don't want to use or can't use utility reserves for infrastructure and vice versa. So if you look at the reserves, our projected opening balance for the infrastructure reserve, and that includes all of the other little ones, like we've got the council priority, I think there's a land development reserve, but we've got $19 million in the reserve as of beginning of 2026. Then I look at the transfers. We've projected what transfers we're looking at putting from operating every year. So we're going to transfer $22 million over the next 10 years into this reserve. And based on what above we've said our shortfall from grants is going to be, we'll need to pull $22 million out of the reserves. So the good news is that at the end of 10 years, if this plan is, and it's going to change, I mean, absolutely, we know that, but you'll have $18 million in the reserves in 10 years. So that shows that really our rate of expenditure it's pretty stable. And I'll talk about the balances in a minute. But the same thing, if you look at the utility reserves, we're sitting with 9.6 projected balance. We're looking at putting 20 million into those reserves. We're looking at taking 19 and 20 million out of those reserves. So at the end of 10 years, we're sitting with $9.8 million in the utility reserve. Where this is important is, one, you're leaving a legacy for future councils. Some of you may be on council in 10 years, some of you may not be, but you're leaving a functional organization for the future people that will have lots of plans and projects that they want to undertake. The other thing that I think is really important with this is well, there's two reasons. One is if we have any unforeseen emergent items that come up where all of a sudden something big breaks. I don't know if the CAO could tell me what, but where you need $2 or $3 million like right now. I think about the break in Calgary. I shudder to think what that cost, and I shudder to think about the finance people going, okay, how are we going to pay for this? So one, it protects you against unforeseen expenditures. The other thing, and that I take from, listening to the discussions that you've had in your service level, you're a new council, you've got, different ideas and things that you want to do, is if we have any big projects that you come up with or that you decide you want to undertake, you do have the ability to do it without looking at debt financing. And to me, sometimes when you do a long-term project, sometimes you do want to use debt financing because it spreads the cost out over future generations. But if you wanted to do something, say there was a $4 million project, you have the ability to do it in cash or with minor debt servicing right now. Because you don't want to, the position you don't want to get yourself into is where if you've got big fluctuations in your capital projects, all of a sudden you have to turn to taxation to do it. Because, I'm sure we've all seen it happen in other communities where all of a sudden, I think Wetaskiwin had to do this maybe 15 years ago, all of a sudden they ran into an issue and they had to increase taxes by a huge amount in order to manage what their situation was. So really this is providing you with those guarantees. It gives you flexibility, it protects you against the future, and it leaves a legacy for future councils. So that's what I take out of this document. Comments, questions? Make sense? And we've been really fortunate because the last couple of years, the interest rates have gotten higher. So, we've been well able to put well over $1 million a year into that reserve. And to me, that's just, it's really safeguarding your future.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Thanks, Betty. It wasn't about this document. I think this is a question for Mr. Kraus in relation to the federal affordable housing funding that they're coming out with. Do we have any indication if that's going to, there's going to be a matching, that we have to match that, or is there any indication in that at all?
No, they haven't come out with the program yet.
They haven't got it down.
No.
Thank you. I just wondered if that was available yet.
Anything further?
Okay, last section, you're almost done, then you can do your wrap-up. So the last piece that I like to present to council is just a look at your reserves. We've kind of talked about them already. And then looking at your long-term debt. So on page 534, we basically just take, and it's an estimated closing balance. These numbers are going to change once the year end happens. But we're looking at what our total reserve balance is estimated at the end of 2025. And then based on the budget that you've just gone through, we're saying, these are the funds that we're going to transfer to the reserves. And then this is the funds of reserves that we're going to use, so that's your closing balance. So it's just kind of a summary showing what it is. If you look at the offsite levies, they generate interest, so interest monies is going into that. The interest is allocated between each of the reserves. So it's just kind of a little summary for you. The next one is a listing of our long-term debt. As you can see, we're down to we have 4 debentures that are remaining. Actually, the recreation facility just dropped off this year, so I took that line out. It was probably taken out in, I'm thinking 2015 when they did the expansion. So we have a Westview Lodge Seniors Housing. It's done in 2029. There was an upgrade from the water treatment plant. It's done in 2029. And the last two are things that have happened in the last 5 years. So 54th Street Extension, we borrowed $1.8 million to undertake that project. And then the wastewater treatment facility is $4.8 million, and it's running out past the 2035. So it's going on out past that. I do have, and this is where, if say a big project comes up, this is where I would look at it and go, okay, we need to borrow some debt. So just, we did increase the RCMP detachment significantly based on the CAO's information. And you can see down those little orange lines, I don't know if we could borrow $11 million because it puts our debt servicing against our debt limits up to 54%. You probably could do it, but I mean, we'd have to look at, what's the servicing payments, the principal payments on that would be, $200,000, and the total payments would be $500,000. So like, again, it would be really difficult to do something like that. So it's probably going to continually get pushed out until we can figure out financing. But this is really just to show you what debt we've got. I think the town's been really judicious in their selecting debt. Sorry.
Councilor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. So we have developers who owe us, we just got a payment from a developer who just owed us money on the 54th Street extension. If anybody else owes us money through their development agreement, where does that show up on here? In case, and I specifically refer to this last payment that we just received from the developer on 54th. Would
Okay.
that number been large? Because, I mean, the payment they paid was significant.
Yeah.
So how does that show up in there? Because that's actually debt that we're responsible for, because we'd have had the debt up front.
Okay, it would show up on the balance sheet. We had a liability and a receivable of, like, we had a receivable showing up for $2.4 million because we built the project and capitalized it. So, the total cost of the project would have gone into our assets. And then we had a receivable that was still waiting to be paid. We did use a line of credit to fund that, so that line of credit was also showing up on the audited financial statements.
So it'd show up there, but why would it not show up here? Because I look at that, if that developer would have faulted in payment, that debt load would have fallen on the town of Rocky Mount, it's long-term debt. So in this case, long-term debt, you would think would be in there.
It wasn't if we go back to the financials audited statements, I do believe under the debt section they listed it. I haven't listed it in here. I mean, I guess we're operating on the assumption that until they default, they're going to pay it. And even if they did default, the fact that that doesn't necessarily mean that we would go borrow $2.5 million to pay for it. So, well, we don't know that, right? So, but this schedule has primarily been to focus on what our debenture debt is. So that's.
So I hear you, but we always have to be cautious. I mean, from an elected official, from
Right.
my perspective.
Yeah.
We can't be broadsided by all of a sudden somebody defaulting on a payment. So I guess the question is, are there any other developers who owe us money
No,
other
not-
than that one?
No, that was just.
And should they be showing up on here? So if they go sideways, that all of a sudden we're not, oh man, we gotta take on an extra $2.5 million debt load.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a responsibility on our,
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
our, yeah.
I mean, this has always been primarily focused on debenture debt because that's typically all that a town would do. The fact that we entered into an agreement with a developer, that's the first time I've ever seen a town do that, to be honest. No. And if we were doubtful about it, it,
I understand all that. It's just
Yeah.
that someplace in this document, I think that it deserves its own line item. So we as council, I mean, we have a fiduciary interest in
Yeah.
the pennies of the town. All of a sudden, if that went sideways,
In-
I,
yeah, so the places where it would be showing up, like, and we certainly could add, if we had any big debt like that, it could certainly be added to this sheet. This is a budget document, but if you entered into something like that, one, it's gonna go to council, have discussion, there's gonna be a motion on the books authorizing that. If we used a line of credit, there's gonna be a bylaw put in place to access the line of credit, and it's gonna show up in your audited financial statements in a note saying that this money has been lent to, and so that's the places where you're gonna see it. But absolutely, if that's council's desire to see any kind of major debt like that, absolutely, we can include it as a, budgetary,
it's past tense now.
yeah.
But in the future, I think that it'd be advantageous to be as transparent as possible, especially when it comes to budgeting. So,
Okay.
Go ahead.
So that's a wrap. I guess we've walked through the entire budget document. Usually after our budget sessions, I think it's worthwhile for council to sort of have conversation amongst yourselves, discuss, you've made one big change in the document, but is there other areas that you would like to touch back on? And are you satisfied with the document the way it stands, with the changes we've identified? Because the next step for us is go back and prepare a consolidated budget for presentation on Tuesday at your next council meeting for approval. So this is your opportunity to discuss it.
Councillor Stalker.
Thank you, Mayor Bonifest. With that said, if we can refer back to page 248. And under revenues, the third one down, the bulk water, I wanted to discuss, I see there's a percentage change of 4.14, and I'll wait till folks get to that page on 248. I wanted to discuss maybe a larger percentage increase in that, and maybe I could ask administration, do we know, has it been going up every year, the bulk water, or is this the first time it's moved the needle on that?
No, we've done adjustments in the past. It's reviewed annually.
I guess looking at the value of water across the board in North America, and certainly the recognizing what the discussion around a significant amount of activity here with gas drilling, I'm wondering if there would be a consideration, council, to move that to 10%, and look at that. I know that we're moving a lot of water, and Sean, it looks like you probably have a insight.
Just for council's information, really quickly, I pulled some bulk water rates from adjacent municipalities. This is not a comprehensive list or anything else. They're just the ones I was able to quickly pull. Sylvan lists theirs for $7.25 a cubic meter. Whitecourt, which is a similar size municipality, I know they're not local to us, but they have a similar demographic and services, is $9.85. Red Deer is fairly different from us. They don't have the same bulk industrial buyers. They're down at 521. Grand Prairie is at 1126. Just for some reference points that I was able to quickly pull up.
And thank you for that. I'm trying to find the number we're at. I was,
668.
oh, 668, so a 10% increase is, 668 is only 63 cents on a 10%, and that would only still bring us under $7. Certainly, I think you said Whitecourt's at 985, so I think in fairness to our water production aspect that it would appear we're using those numbers that we're probably undervaluing that asset. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, so there is a high demand for our water. Our water is primarily used out here for oil field production units. And I know the cost for us to produce that water, the first few cubic meters are fairly easy to produce, but again, the water plant likes a low, steady flow. And again, this isn't a big increase in flow, and when it does happen, it does ramp it up. So I don't have a dollar value on exactly what these extra cubic meters cost us, because that's really hard for us to determine overall.
Just kind of, I'd done some of the numbers in my head here, that that increase of an additional 5.86% is going to raise $25,000 in revenue in that range. Actually, that's a little too high a calculation, probably $20,000 in revenue. I don't think it's a substantial cost to the purchasers, and it'll, especially, and Sean, I thank you for those numbers, because it looks like we're undervaluing it at 3.63 or 3.36. So I think we could even go beyond 10%, but I think that's a starting point to not, just wondered what thoughts are.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I agree. I think there's room to move that up based on Sylvan Lake and Whitecourt's numbers. Do you have any idea where you would think these extra revenues would go? Had you considered that? I have an idea I'd like to share with council. We got rid of off-site levies for developers, but is this an opportunity to start to plan for future costs in our water treatment plant by these increased funds that we gather from bulk water sales, to start to set that aside for future utilities, upgrades and replacements? Just a thought.
Councillor Stocker.
Yeah, I had given it some thought. I think we're looking at an increase of $20 in the utilities this year, and my understanding is that because this is in the utility area, the money has to stay in that area. I'm wondering if we can split the difference and keep that price down to the payers of that service, which are all in town here, and keep that down. And then certainly I agree, we're gonna have to plan for the future. All the parts are going up and everything on utilities. Looking at that number, I may have undersold the 10%. I hate to, knowing, and maybe we don't want to, there's certainly people from the county that are coming in and using that, and we want them to be able to adapt to a price change. Just county residents that are picking up water, and certainly want to take that into consideration.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to make a motion to have administration look into this, maybe prepare a report regarding increases in bulk water sales rates, and also what to do with the surplus. What do you think?
I think that's a good idea. Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. Where I'm at is I do think that we can increase that maybe up to 12%. But what I'd like to see the revenues from that is to go directly towards what our citizens pay on their water and sewer bill. I want to subsidize that. We got substantial increases in our water and sewer bills this year coming, and any subsidy that we would provide for that via this route, I think, should go towards that rather than saving the funds. So I would advocate for a 12% increase with the revenues going directly towards reducing our utility bills. And I'd ask administration if that's a dream of mine or if that's a reality that could happen.
I believe that's, yeah, so with the utilities being self-funded, the increase in revenue could be used to drop the overall utility rate. So it all balances out. And again, as far as the council report, again, it's a political thing, but yeah.
Is that okay with everyone?
I guess the fear I have is if we do put up our utility rates 12%, will that decrease the amount of water that goes out of our plant? And so then will it send our revenues down from where right now we're at 300,000 if all of a sudden we got 200,000? So we're making an assumption that we're not going to lose any sales, but in fact we likely will lose some sales. So I'm not sure how we'd address that.
Councillor Stalker.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I'd considered that because that is the other part. When we were discussing the other day about the future gas drilling that's here, I think that may have the benefit of offsetting that. And again, it's only speculation. I think we have to just own, if we just own that our pricing is quite a bit lower than any of the comparator communities, I think we can safely say that it's a fair move to up it.
Could I just get verification? I think the rate before the rates and fee bylaw that's coming in, it was 641. And I believe we're looking at 668. So when you say, could just make sure you're clear, if you do a 12% increase, is it off the 641, which is this year's rate? Okay, just so that we do the, because that would put it to 718. Right?
So still less than so.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Mayor. So when is the rates and fees bylaw coming before council?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, so we don't have to make a decision today.
There we are.
It's part of rates and fees bylaw.
It is, we need to give administration direction to what they're doing with the rates and fee bylaw. If we decide today, then it's much easier to put in the document for Tuesday.
Comments, Mr. Krause? We'll do what, I know council gets to do whatever it wants, yes. Anyways, I would just like it to come forward for discussion when the bylaw is presented. If it's a bylaw change, it's gonna go through 3 readings and needs lots of time to consider. I think we're trying to hustle this through and I'm uncomfortable with it.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we're gonna wait till the Tuesday meeting and discuss it then?
Did we have a
The-
motion on
the-
the floor?
We had,
Did we?
No.
no, oh.
No, the issue comes where we're approving utility fees in the budget. If I'm not mistaken, are we not, or is that in the rates and fees?
No, that is in the rates and fees, so I would prefer a number today and make Betty work overtime to adjust. Because if you're looking to put it towards the base fee, so we gotta readjust that figure too then, right? So if council went $7 per cube, then we could figure it out and drop the base rate. I don't know how much it would drop the base rate, but
Basically, what I'd do is I'd rerun my spreadsheets and decide whether you want 7 or 718. So I'd rerun that, whatever the extra revenue that was generated from bulk. And again, you'd have to decide, do you want it just against residential rates? Or do you want it against residential and commercial? Because we have we budget based on 2,249 residential properties and 424 commercial. Before, when you were talking 20,000, it's gonna drop their flat rate by $1. So it'll be somewhere in that range. Or if we include commercial, it'll be slightly less.
Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I'm still leaning towards the 12%, the 718. That's lower than Sylvan Lake, lower than all the examples other than Red Deer. And I think it should be across the board for everybody. And do you want that in a motion? I would, so I'm gonna throw the motion in on the floor and that it be resolved that we would increase our bulk water rate by 12% to $7.18 per cube, and that the revenues gained by that would be applied towards the flat rate on the utility bills.
Any discussion on that motion on the table? Seeing none, then I will call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Stogger.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. I'd like to refer to page 272, and this is going to probably be an identical discussion around bulk sewer rates, and I'm wondering if we have a similar comparison, Sean. That was fabulous that you had that right at your fingertips.
I don't have one for the bulk sewer rates. I will say that we are partners with the county for our sewer rates, so modifications to that rate, we should probably just want to be aware of. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a handshake.
No, we're not partners with the rates. They did contribute to the plant for the capital costs because their residents use the plant. But they don't contribute to any operating costs of our wastewater treatment plant because it's a user pay system. The county does take bulk sewer out at Leslieville, and they charge $10 a cube. And we're proposing $9.84 in the budget. So if you match the county's price of $10 per cube, it would equal an additional $6,000 to this budget.
So I'm wondering if we could have this maybe brought back with the expertise that you brought to the last conversation, Sean, where we could just maybe check Sylvan Whitecourt and see if we're in that ballpark. We're certainly in the ballpark with the county. I'm just wondering other municipalities.
Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Mayor Boniface. We're talking 14 cents a cube on a pretty small number. I don't think we should waste administration's time. I think we should just leave it as status quo. We're close to Leslieville.
And that is the most comparable, is Leslieville. Like, so if we were over Heist, that's where they would go haul to.
Councillor Stogger.
I'm fine with that, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to have the discussion around it. Thank you.
Okay, is there any more discussion on the table? Then I believe we're done the budget review. Thank you very much, everyone, for all your hard work. Go ahead, Betty.
Just one more question. So we did reduce the COLA by down to 3%. So it's going to generate some extra funds. Where do you want those to go? Okay, so reduce the tax rates by the equivalent amount. Okay. Okay.
Councillor Shipple.
So tax rates, Innisfail yesterday approved zero tax increase. And Red Deer, on the other hand, was 3.84, something such as that. And we're talking about 2.84, if I'm not mistaken, in that rate. So I think that we're definitely comparable to what's going on around us. I have no problem with supporting where we're at in our process that we just did and supporting the increase that we've discussed. So that's where I'm at there. Now, Innisfail is at 0%, and that's a dangerous place to go because you got to grow your community, and you only grow your community by sometimes spending money, but you got to do it with the respect of what citizens pay. So I'm 100% okay with where we're at.
Thank you. Any further comments? Betty?
Sorry, just to confirm one more, the capital, we did make a change to the wayfinding? Okay, just so, yeah, we've got all those changes. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Boniface?
Okay, I'm not quite clear, so are we contributing what we gained back to the taxes, or we're gonna leave them to the same?
We're
Or
cutting the original tax rate back to 2.8.
Okay, okay.
8.6, yeah. Okay? Roughly. There is?
So what Innisfail is saying is they're not increasing their mill rate. So, but the assessment has gone up, so they're gonna do it, they get additional taxes that way, so. Yeah. Yeah. So,
We could have that same argument here, because we got a bit of growth in terms of what our assessment is.
There's two components to when the assessment changes. One is new development, so if there's new taxes, that's new money. So I always say that's extra, and we don't step into that. The other one is inflation and deflation. I always adjust for that and take it out of the equation, because to me, it's a slippery slope in my mind. So I look at the absolute dollars and say, okay, we need another 300,000. So we start with the total dollars that we need and divide it by the assessment. The assessment could double, but we're not gonna collect double the taxes. We're still only gonna collect an extra 300,000. What fluctuates is the mill rate based on the inflation or deflation. And yes, some towns will ignore that, which can be done, but then if you've got deflation, I mean, it's a totally different, you're not gonna start reducing, but I eliminate that out of the calculation.
Anything further? Then I think we have concluded. So thank you very much to all admin and supervisors for helping us out with this, keeping us informed, answering all our questions. And thank you to the public for watching. And it's lunchtime. Yes, we're done. Meridian